trying to make sure that all things are equal every day of your life has driven you crazy and it drives me crazy. We need to embrace living unbalanced, and here's how to do it. So there's 3 actions that I want to talk to you very quickly about to master this idea of chaos. Now, chaos in this sense means that sense of losing control, that sense of I am overwhelmed, this sense of I don't know that I have what it takes to make my life run smoothly. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying chaos. I'm not talking about the fact that life is lifing, right? I'm talking about our responses to it. Action number 1, shift your perspective. The overwhelming majority of the thought and idea around work and life is that they're enemies, that they're at odds with each other, that work and life don't coexist, they're butting heads, they're fighting. In shifting your perspective, I want you to challenge yourself to embrace integration, not enemy standoff. Your work and your life are not enemies. Love what you are doing. You are called to what you are doing. I love what I do. And I had to very early on embrace the fact that I enjoy my work. And that shouldn't be in conflict or in a battle against my life. So that means in shifting my perspective, you and I have the complete control to determine the meaning of things. My work and my life are not enemies. I need to then figure out a way to integrate all the pieces, shifting my perspective from this adversarial relationship to this integrated relationship. When I had little ones, and I had this national radio show and I set up an office studio in my home, they were under my desk when I'm interviewing people. Thank God it was radio back in that day because they would have seen some things. But I was able to do what I was doing and do what I was doing, right? I had to get this idea that these two have to work simultaneously. So let's go on to action number 2. In order to have this shift in perspective, this is what we must do. Set boundaries around your values. I call this values-driven living. Living by my values. What does that look like? Up front, I decided a couple of things. One, when I was building my career as a single person and before I got married, and then as I was getting married, I decided somewhere, it's got lost for a long time, but somewhere I decided, at the end of the finish line of this career, I do want to be standing next to him. I do want him to be there. I do want him, not him, Tony, to be there. And presetting that idea, setting that value, that marriage to Tony was a value, it then simultaneously, year after year, time after time, worked its way into my DNA of living. So it's not enough to say I value family time or I value myself enough to care for myself. That's not enough. You got to work that into your DNA of living. So the setting of the boundaries around your values is the hard and fast rules that you're using to govern your life. I am going to be a values-driven leader. And subsequently, these are the values that I'm going to lock in place, and I'm going to set the boundaries around those values. There's a lot of strategic decisions that you and I can pre-make that will enable us to live our values. I strongly recommend that as you're shifting your perspective, that work and life are not enemies, They need to be integrated, but they need to be integrated strategically by setting the boundaries around your values. And then number three, I'm not going to have a time that I'm not going to discuss our emotions. Then we've got to study our feelings. I'm going to give you 5 things or the way that emotions show up for us. Number 1, our emotions talk to us. They let us know how we really feel about something. Number 2, your emotions and my emotions, they tell on us. They reveal our true attitude and our true thoughts. So yes, they'll talk and they'll say, girl, you don't like that. Girl, you tired. Go lay down. Go get in the bed. They will talk to you like that, but they will also tell on you when you are downstairs or upstairs or in the kitchen and you snap because they don't talk to you and told you to go sit down, but now you have not done that and something has broken or something has popped off or someone has said something and they tell on you. You tired. You need to go. They tell on us. What do they do too? They will topple you. Once uncontrolled or once unrecognized, emotions can tear you apart. They will so destroy your ability to be able to regulate. You're all over the place. They will also test us. They will make us unable or able to cope with situations and people. When you think about emotions testing you, think about that person that you work with or that relationship that you are challenged by, or that relationship that you absolutely adore. There's always a test. How much can you feel? How much can you love? How much can you endure? There's this idea that your emotions are at work, testing relationships and the way that you approach life and the way that you feel. And finally, emotions will teach you. They will inform you about what you really want, what you really need, what you really feel or like or dislike. And as teachers, our emotions, if we are students of them, will absolutely bring us to the point in our lives where we have ultimate control. So you and I must begin to study our emotions. I've talked about shifting your perspective. I've talked about setting these boundaries around our values. And I've talked about studying our feelings. But now I'd like to show you with this demonstration what this looks like as we apply these principles to master our life's chaos. This tray represents our lives, the boundary of our lives. Each one of us, and don't ever forget this, have a finite existence. Life doesn't just continue to go on and on and on. You've got one tray, you've got one life. That's why I want you to live it to its fullest. This fruit represents you and me in all of our glory, the different roles that we play, the different activities that we've got going on, the different relationships, the different experiences. And most of us live our lives like this. Everything is everywhere. I'm a mom, an executive, I'm a wife, I got some kids, I've got responsibilities, and we are all over the place. And what I'm suggesting that we do, number one, is that we shift our perspective, that we recognize this is the only life that I'm going to have, and that my work and my life and everything else I've got going on is in and has one meaning only. But then I suggested that we set boundaries around our values, which means we've got to bring in some serious ideas and serious boundaries represented by the bowl in our lives so that we can pre-choose how we're going to distribute and show up and which values are going to get the best or which situations or circumstances we're going to be able to handle in our lives. When I have set boundaries, I can then distribute myself, distribute my life, show up elegantly, show up and taste good and look good every step of the way. If I know that for this season, my work is not going to be as much as what I have going on in my life, I can decide, look, this role, this boundary, this value, I need to work on it a little bit more. Guess what? This is still all my life. I'm still doing what I need to do, but I'm doing it in a more organized and structured manner, eliminating and tamping down the overwhelm and the out of control nature. And this will allow me to actually study, how do I feel about this role? How much of me is actually being distributed in this particular role? Is this the right distribution? Am I as effective as I need to be? How do I feel about the leftover scribbles that are down here? Am I down here in the gully somewhere with myself, or do I need to put myself back on the agenda and make sure that this value doesn't move? This idea, you and I could either have a life of chaos where the fruit is all over the place and we're going from one end of the world to the other, or we can decide up front how I want to live, how I want to show up, and I could begin to live a life that has mastered the chaos. Think about this as we wrap our time here. One rotten piece of fruit in a fruit bowl will do what? It will seep into and destroy the entire bowl. So even having the values boundaried in those bowls gives you protection for your precious fruit of who you are. One unripe piece of fruit, we've got to guard our lives. And this is the way you do it, by embracing unbalanced, shifting your perspective. Work and life are not enemies. They need to be integrated.